Hi, I'm Mark, and welcome to the weekly Outside Views report on German politics. This time I will try it a bit differently, though. Not too many people seem to be interested in the news kind overview from the last week, so I will now test a different approach. From the region that is due on the respective day, as you're used to, I will pick one topic from the current developments and talk about this one topic in a little more detail than you're used to. And so today we start this test, of course, with a German topic. In this video, I will talk about the real end of nuclear energy in Germany and if it is an ideological green misleading error. A few days before the shutdown of the last German nuclear power plants, displeasure with the long-decided measure does not stop. Criticism continues to come from business, but also from the Liberal Party in the government. The Liberals at least want to keep the 3 nuclear power plants in reserve and not immediately dismantle them. The TÜV Association also does not consider the end to be necessary. Ex-Environment Minister Jürgen Trittin from the Greens, who helped negotiate the first phase-out of nuclear power, defended the final end of nuclear power in Germany, though. And Economics Minister Robert Habeck from the Greens considers Germany's forthcoming phase-out of nuclear energy to be irreversible, despite all opposition. After the shutdown on April 15th, the last 3 power plants would go into dismantling sooner or later, as the Green politicians told the newspapers of the Funke Media Group. And the construction of new nuclear power plants has always presented itself as an economic fiasco, whether in France, Great Britain or Finland, he said. The operators have no interest in that. However, a large majority of Germans are against phasing out nuclear energy at this point in time. In a survey by the opinion research institute YouGov on behalf of the German press agency, 65% were in favor of letting the power plants running for the time being. The union asked the federal government to reverse its exit decision even. The Isar 2, Emsland and Neckar-Westheim 2 nuclear reactors should actually have been taken off the grid at the end of last year. However, due to the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine and the resulting energy crisis, the so-called traffic light coalition decided last year to let the last 3 power plants continue to run over the winter. On Saturday now, the 3 remaining nuclear power plants in Germany, and I have to say it again, it's Isar 2 in Bavaria, Emsland in Lower Saxony and Neckar-Westheim in Baden-Württemberg, are to go off the grid for good. As I said, this was actually supposed to happen at the end of last year already. However, it is something that was absolutely necessary, and as much as I criticized this government, it was good that they decided last year to let the reactors continue over the winter, otherwise we would have been in even more trouble. But now, on April 15th, after around 60 years, the use of nuclear energy in Germany is supposed to end. In 2002, the Red-Green government decided to end nuclear power production after a standard period of 32 years per power plant. New buildings were no longer allowed, and 8 years later, the Christian Democrat Liberal coalition extended the terms again, but after the Fukushima nuclear disaster in 2011, Chancellor Angela Merkel pushed through the final exit, which I thought was a mistake at the time, and still do. In the traffic light coalition, the Liberals had vehemently opposed the shutdown of the last power plants now. The Secretary General Bijan Diyar still thinks the step is wrong. From the point of view of the Liberals, continued operation of the nuclear power plants would be necessary for energy security and to avoid coal-fired power. It is unfortunate that the Greens are blocking and not showing any understanding. We should also discuss the chances of new and safer nuclear fission and nuclear fusion technologies with an open mind, is what Diyar told the German press agency. And the Christian Democrats, on the other hand, complain about the lack of climate protection in this decision. The Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the DIHK, warns of supply bottlenecks and rising energy prices. This Green climate minister prefers to run coal-fired power plants, the ultimate climate killer, CO2 polluters, than climate-neutral ones, said Jens Spahn from the Christian Democrats, vice chairman of them in the Bundestag. It's a black day for climate protection in Germany, he said. Spahn called for the last 3 nuclear power plants to be extended until at least the end of 2024. Coal-fired power plants should be taken off the grid. Nuclear power plants should run because they are safe and climate neutral, he says. According to the Federal Environment Agency, the UBA, electricity from nuclear power plants is not CO2 neutral though. CO2 emissions are generated during the construction of the power plants, the transport of the radioactive material, or the operation of interim and final storage facilities. In addition, the materials used in the construction, steel and concrete, are very CO2 intensive. According to the UBA, nuclear power is better for the climate than fossil fuels such as coal or gas in terms of emissions, but is still significantly more harmful than renewable energies. But better than coal, and that's what Spahn said. In view of the imminent phase-out of the nuclear energy, the German Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the DIHK, has warned of supply bottlenecks and rising energy prices, as I said. Despite the drop in gas prices, energy costs remain high for most companies in Germany, said DIHK President Peter Adrian to the Rheinische Post on Tuesday. At the same time, Germany is not over the hill when it comes to security of supply, it's a German saying. We must therefore continue to do everything we can to expand the supply of energy and not restrict it any further. Germany is dependent on all available energy sources, as Adrian warned. This is the only way we can avoid or at least mitigate supply bottlenecks and another massive increase in energy prices in the coming months, he says. Failures or restrictions in the energy supply are a hitherto unknown risk for Germany and a locational disadvantage that nothing can compensate for in an industrialized country, he warned. Against this background, large parts of the German economy are relying on allowing usable nuclear power plants to continue running until the end of the crisis. Even after the shutdown of the last 3 nuclear power plants in Germany on April 15th, one German company continues to produce nuclear power. The energy group Uniper, which was nationalized in the course of the gas crisis, has a stake in 3 nuclear power plants in Sweden, in one of them as the majority owner. Uniper has 1.4 gigawatts of attributable nuclear power capacity in Sweden, which obtains around 40% of its electricity from nuclear energy, says the Düsseldorf-based company's website. 1.4 gigawatts correspond to the gross output of the RWE nuclear power plant in Emsland, which is about to be shut down. There are no plans to part with nuclear power plants in Sweden, said a Uniper spokesman when asked by the German press agency. Uniper is a reliable operator of its nuclear power plants in Sweden and does everything possible to ensure safe operation, said the spokesman. And Uniper is currently planning to construct an electrical non-nuclear research and test facility at the site of the nuclear power plant in Oskarshamn, the construction of which should start next year. The project will be carried out in cooperation with the Blickala company and the Royal Institute of Technology. The research facility will be used to test materials and components for a new type of reactor, a so-called small modular reactor or SMR. The aim is to develop a reactor that can continue to supply fossil-free electricity to industry and society in a stable, cost-efficient and climate-friendly manner, says a Uniper information page. What differentiates an SMR from today's large nuclear power plants is that it can deliver the same amount of stable and fossil-free electricity as it does today, but is more flexible and takes up less space. The concept provides that the components are prefabricated and transported to the site. There, they would then be put together like a do-it-yourself kit. Due to the serial production, the costs and time required for the construction of an SMR are significantly lower than for a large nuclear power plant. The German newspaper Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung had previously reported on Uniper's plans in Sweden. The German Institute for Economic Research, the DIW, recently expressed its disapproval of SMR systems, though, which are understood to mean reactors with an electrical output of up to 300 megawatts instead of the 1400. According to a study, SMR concepts are not mature and will not be available in the foreseeable future. These were old reactor concepts that would not have established themselves due to the economic disadvantages caused by the lower outputs. Furthermore, they remain radiologically dangerous since the problem of increased transport and interim storage of radioactive waste would be multiplied, he said. Despite decades of research, hardly any nuclear power plant in the SMR category has been able to start commercial power operation. Even assuming optimistic framework conditions, a cost competition offer cannot be assumed. That's why I wanted to give you all the views. Uniper, of course, as the one testing it, and the other side that is not so happy about it. But nevertheless, phasing out German nuclear energy, the safest running reactors in the world probably at the moment, and shutting them down is complete madness. Yes, power, if you put everything together, there were calculations here in Germany. If you put everything, all the costs together, with the construction, with the storing the waste and everything, a kilowatt hour costs about 38 cents, and the one from coal-fired power plant, I guess, is 23 cents. But in case of a crisis, when we get in trouble again because of gas deliveries or whatever, first of all, they would be very helpful, and they could be kept on the grid at least, and kept in reserve. That is technically no problem with that, to keep them at least until the end of next year without some bigger maintenance work there. And so it's absolutely ridiculous to do that now. And on the other hand, they are standing there, so the CO2 produced by building them, etc., doesn't count anymore. And even with that, they were CO2 friendlier than any coal-fired power plant. And the coalition that wants to be the climate coalition fired up coal-fired power plants to get those nuclear power plants down. And if you dismantle them, there will be new CO2 emissions by dismantling them. So that's all completely nonsense arguments there on the CO2 emissions. They are up and running, and they are producing much less CO2 than coal-fired power plants. So keep them, for heaven's sake. I thought it was a mistake when Merkel decided you cannot make emotional decisions as a government because of Fukushima. Yes, that was a catastrophe for the people there. But first of all, ours are not standing in tsunami regions, in earthquake regions like many others do in Europe, by the way. If something happens from the countries that are even building more nuclear power plants, it will hit us, and we can't do anything about this. And ours are indeed safer. So it is just an absolutely ideological step to really go through with this. And I said at the time when Merkel made the decision, it is a mistake, and today I still say it's a mistake to phase them out, and to phase them out right now is a major mistake by the current government. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.